Hello and welcome to Symbiotic Futures, where we're exploring ideas and actions that decenter humans by examining our relationships to living and non-living entities. I'm Venya Patel, and I'm so happy to be joined by Lisa Doeland, who's a postdoctoral researcher. So, Lisa, thank you so much for being here. And can you tell me a little bit
Thanks for
about
having me.
yourself? Yeah.
So I've just started as a postdoctoral researcher at the Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam on a project in which I will be exploring the existential dimensions of planetary health. So planetary health is a bit of a new field of studies, a bit of a buzzword, I think. Just like in a different field, but the circular economy. And one of the things that I explored in my PhD research was this notion of the circular economy kind of promising an alternative to a linear economy, to an extractive capitalist economy, but at the same time, not really being an alternative, rather enforcing the status quo. And one of the things that I would like to explore in this postdoctoral research is if there is a possibility to salvage this notion of planetary health, make sure that it is not a way to enforce the status quo, still trying to focus mainly on the health of the anthropos of humans. So in name, it's concerned with planetary health, but if you go look um, into what is actually happening, there is still we just have a hard time letting go of anthropocentrism, I would say. So this is what I will be exploring in my research. Right now, I'm mainly inspired by the notion of something called the planetary uncanny that I just came across. So the idea that we should rethink this planetary as something that is uncanny and unheimlich, which is also something that I explored in my PhD research. So this really ties in nicely the way in which earlier I kind of called upon waste, inquiring into why our culture is riddled with waste, why we define waste in a certain way, why within a circular economy waste is changed into a resource, so waste simply cannot be. In doing so, kind of haunting the circular economy. Waste, in this sense, um, kind of being a stand-in for ecology, for ecological questions and matters. So ecology wasting or haunting economy. And then I find that in the postdoctoral research, I'm kind of moving into the body, perhaps not just focusing on waste that can actually be imagined as something outside of us, out there in a landfill or dumped, or as we do in the Netherlands, use it when we construct motorways. So kind of, I don't know, um, ditching it underneath, but then calling it some kind of resource while there's still toxicity and things leaking out anyways, etc. But then this is how we tend to imagine waste, I would say, as something, I don't know, messy that we put in our bins. Whereas when you inquire into planetary health, you have to inquire also into microplastics, PFAS, pesticides, and these are not just outside; they're inside, and they cannot be kept out easily. So, yeah.
Yeah. And so I have prepared some questions.
Yeah.
So let's just get right into it. So my first question is, I read your thesis draft and you wrote about being haunted by waste, to quote you. So you extend the understanding of ecology to go beyond the living and include the dead and undead, as you said, including plastics and PFAS chemicals. At the same time, you also echo Marco Armerio's concept of the wastocene, and link these ideas to your embodied experiences of childbirth and questioning. Through this, you question where the self ends and where the world begins, through the placenta, breast milk, the mother, and the world. So my question ultimately first is, why is it important to understand ourselves as being haunted by waste, and what does this haunting reveal about our ecological condition?
Yeah. Um, how to answer this question? Because I have been haunted by waste in many ways throughout this process, which also means that there are that I always have to look for some kind of entryway into answering the question. Um, for now, I would say that the way in which we are haunted by waste is that we are haunted by, let's call it the ecological real. So waste reminds us of the ecological real. Um, and I think the best way to describe this ecological real is that there uh, that that the ecological real reminds us that we do not have we can never get full control, manageability, some kind of um, bird's eye view from which we can decide where to go, where to put things, how to perhaps design our way out of the ecological crisis. Um, and I think this becomes especially haunting when we are reminded of when we think about these very small pieces of waste like PFAS and pesticides and microplastics that haunt us already in the womb, tying also one generation to the next, also kind of forcing us to to ask the question, will there even be future generations? Will there even be intergenerational heritages that can be passed on? um, because one of the things that we have been learning for some time now, but it's becoming more clear ever more clear, is that the additives to microplastics in particular, they lead to massive fertility loss, and something that I wasn't aware of when I was pregnant with my son 5 years ago, but that I learned about a year ago, I think, is that his fertility was already decided upon in the womb. So apparently you can measure the distance between I think where the distance between the bottom of the penis and the anus, and if it's small and it's getting smaller and smaller, then this is a way in which we can measure. You have to do it, mind you, when the baby's just born. So now I'm unsure, but apparently so this is something that is decided upon in the womb because of things that I had taken in, had been breathing in, eating, drinking at the time, passing on. He will pass on or not to future generations, etc. So haunting and hauntedness is something that connects us to both in space and time, in that matter. So it both to future generations, so the generations that came before that have burdened us with certain heritages, either physical or mental, and that you pass on. So in that sense, but also in space, of course, we are connected to our environments in many different ways, made up of it. And this is something that I would say we have a hard time taking in. Um, and the ecological reel reminds us
Yeah.
of these things, and also reminds us of the real possibility of ends of generations, perhaps even of extinction.
Mm. Yeah. So there is some kind of almost sinister element through the use of the metaphor haunted, but also in a very real way. We are amid this kind of waste that we cannot control and pollution that enters and passes through our bodies.
Yeah, and this hauntedness it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Mhm.
We are haunted. So if I just leave it at the let's leave it at the psychological or the psychoanalytical level. I'm haunted by my parents, by my grandparents. In a way, there might be trauma or that's passed on through the generations. And the thing with ghosts and the thing with trauma is, of course, that they need they need acknowledgement. So the proper way of dealing with ghosts is trying to communicate in one way or another, because if you don't, then it gets really messy. And of course, the same goes for so if you imagine the ghost here as the trauma, then you should not try and make the trauma go away. Act as if it's not there. You have to familiarize yourself with that trauma, learn in what sense it is now really your own trauma, or perhaps it's someone else's, and you can kind of learn to live with it, distance yourself. So it's so I would say that this haunting is not necessarily a bad thing, also because what we of course hope is that this haunting will will keep on going, that there will be future generations, not just human generations, that will haunt each other with their presences. And of course sometimes this is a difficult business or a messy business, but the ghosts are there. We need to learn to live with them, to listen to them.
Yeah, to learn to live with them. I think that's
Yeah,
the takeaway from it.
yeah.
You also make a distinction between waste and trash. And could you maybe clarify what that difference is and how it shapes our relationships with the world between waste and trash?
Yeah. So this is something that I really have been struggling with. So how, which words, which concepts do I use and why? So I have been using waste from the beginning, but then only later on. And of course, I realized quite soon there are many words you could use. So there's detritus, trash, litter is, I don't know, kind of in this ballpark. Garbage, of course, I have been looking into the etymology of these words. So trash, I think it's from a Norwegian word like tros, so a fallen leaf is what I remember. But this is of course not how it's used nowadays. So trashing is, yeah, when I trash something, well, there's complete disregard. When I trash it, I'm also reminded of yeah, I'm really breaking it. It can go to pieces. Um, Garbage, especially in I think in the US, relates to, or is a word used um, to denote trash that is in some way organic. Well, but of course, you wanted to know, so why waste and not trash, or what's the distinction between the two? So when you delve into the etymology of waste, it comes from the Latin vastus, which refers to wasteland, or yeah, land that is not put to proper use. And this is an interesting route to take, because um, so in my dissertation I connected um, to the early days of colonialism, capitalism, where first land needed to be framed as a wasteland. So John Locke, for example, the Enlightenment thinker, or the early Enlightenment thinker, um, he kind of uses waste, or thinking in terms of waste and wasteland, in order to legitimize colonization and capitalization of land. So instead of um, by framing something as waste, you argue, so there might be people here, or there might be also other creatures here, animals, but they're not putting this land to proper use. So they're not making it productive, they're not cultivating it, and therefore I can take it from them. So this is also tied to the enclosure of the commons around that time, so 15th century. And this is an interesting lineage for me, because there is a problematic history to waste, thinking in terms of waste. It's connected also to cultivation, to wanting to make things productive, and therewith I would say it's also in the so in the lineage of um, colonialism, capitalism, but then also critique of capitalism. It's got a difficult it's a problematic word. It's a problematic concept with this history.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons for using for tracing waste, for using waste and not trash. Another is that um, there is also a moral aspect to it, in the sense that for Locke already, there is a moral aspect to waste. If you're not putting things to proper use, it can be taken from you in both a legal and a moral sense. So there is, so don't make things go to waste is also something that we think, yeah, that's very adamant still. We should not waste our time. We should not waste our energy. And this is a very, I would say, very capitalist way of thinking. And although I'm much aware that early capitalism and the late capitalism that we're living in now is quite different, but I would say that thinking in terms of putting things to proper use is a red thread that runs from
Yeah.
then to now. And this moral aspect is less visible, is less connected to a notion like trash.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
waste has these colonial roots, but also capitalist roots in a
yeah,
way that we need to that's why we need to rethink, or like be aware of
yeah,
the way we use the word waste and
yeah,
trash, which we think is just disappears. So yeah, as you write, waste doesn't simply disappear. It lingers, it gets stuck, it haunts. You also use it in a way to say that it's not inert, but it's almost as if it's something alive, or it can make you feel ontological insecurity, as in your words. So in a world that's shaped by interdependent life, that's evolved through billions of years, how should we think about waste's indigestibility? So it's not plastic, it's not symbiotic, because yeah, so how can we dwell with it, and what do you mean by uncanny dwelling with waste?
yeah. Mm, okay, so for now, it's good to remember. I mentioned the ecological real earlier, economy being haunted by ecology or by the ecological real. So it's good to know here that the eco, this um, it derives from the Greek word oikos, so it concerns the home. When we think about houses, yeah, the home, the house, the place where we dwell. And these are nowadays, we would like to imagine our houses as being totally ours and impenetrable and totally manageable and in our control. I think this is especially adamant in, it's tied to modernity. I would say since modernity onwards, um, we have been taught to think of the human, the anthropos, as being in full control, in the center, master of his domain. Yeah, his domain. Let's imagine this anthropos as white and male and able. We're finding, however, that the more we try and strengthen our house and making it fully ours, have it, I don't know, yeah, have it in full control, the more problems arise, the more it becomes haunted. So we try to control waste, to manage it, but we find it's everywhere. So you can try and recycle plastics, or not even recycle it, just ditch it somewhere and burn it. But um, it's part of of our home, the oikos, the eco, um, getting inside our bodies as well. And this is a very uncanny feeling. So good to know also here that the English uncanny derives from the German unheimlich. So yeah, unhomely.
Mm-hmm.
So again, the home pops up. And my reason for thinking in terms of a house that is haunted, well, it's of course also it really ties into the metaphorical, yeah, the imagery also that I use. Of course, ghosts also haunt houses. So from that perspective, it works well to use these metaphors, to use the metaphor of the home, and then because it also ties into the metaphor of the specter. It's of course it's also a metaphor. And then, as I explained earlier, the importance here is, you it's not about opening up your home fully, about giving yourself over to the world, fully embracing your ecological being, opening up the door, because then it's no longer a house. So if it still needs some kind of host, yeah, the host of the house, inviting others in. Otherwise, it's just a derelict building, or just a building that anyone can
Yeah.
go into. So there is so you need I need to hold on to the importance of some kind of home, some kind of dwelling that is mine, while at the same time not trying to close off from the environment. So invite others in without opening up too much, because then um, it's no longer my house.
Yeah.
And I would say that as we delve ever deeper into the Anthropocene, or as Armero calls it, the Wastocene, we have to find a way, yeah, some kind of border management here. Well, I should not use the word management. That's problematic. But and it also demands attention and reflection for the borders that we actually bring up everywhere, literally, figuratively, um, and explore the ways in which these lead to, on one end of the border, um, people or humans, non-humans, perhaps even the non-living being construed as without value, um, to be able to waste. And then on the other hand, the lucky few, well, these will be mainly humans, who do have um, a value, who should be cherished, who are, I don't know, intrinsically valuable, something like that. Because the interesting part about this notion of the Wastocene that Armiero coins is that he is interested in the ways in which, so how do wasted lives come about? What is this regime in which wasting is normalized? What kind of regime or system is this, and how is it kept in place? And the interesting bit is that for him, the Wastocene is not so much a geological era. We could go look in the geological strata for evidence of this geological era, and then we could find a nuclear fallout or plastics or whatever. No, this is an era that is that we can read in our bodies. So you can also read the inequality and the injustice of this era in bodies. So some bodies are being made to waste more than others. Some bodies are what Rob Nixon has called sacrifice
Right.
zones.
Yeah.
Yeah, and others are not. We try um, to shield them from this ecological real hunting them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, for instance, I guess indigenous women's breast milk have more
Yeah.
higher levels
Yeah.
of, was it mercury? Because they feed directly from the ocean and the fishes, and so they're
Yeah.
exposed to that in unjust ways of bodies being, I guess, wasted in that sense.